Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Understanding Cardano. My name is Will, and today we're starting a new series where we focus on the latest ecosystem news and happening in Cardano. We've got 4 topics today, and these are the Interim Constitution going live and being able to read and review, the Interim Constitutional Committee vote having been completed at the end of Epoch 492, which was on the 23rd of June, with the results expected today, the 26th of June. We're going to take a look at the Altcoin Daily interview with Charles Hoskinson, and we're going to spend time reviewing and understanding the attempted distributed denial of service attack that occurred on Cardano yesterday. Before we get into the 4 topics I mentioned, I just wanted to hit on this, which was a really interesting thing that happened last week. So you'll see I'm on Michael Dell's Twitter page. So Michael Dell is the founder of Dell Technologies. He's an entrepreneur, a billionaire, and recently started tweeting about Bitcoin. Now, Michael Dell isn't a stranger to Bitcoin. He has been in the Bitcoin space, or at least talked about Bitcoin in the past in 2020 and 21, but did start to ease off of that as we entered into the bear market. So what I just want to draw your attention to here is there's three posts, and we'll start with this one, the most recent one. So Michael Dell just posting a humorous image of the Cookie Monster eating Bitcoins. So with this and with these other 2 posts down here, it got people thinking, what is Michael Dell about to do? So he's reposted Michael Saylor, and I'm sure a lot of you know Michael Saylor, who's a huge Bitcoin advocate and really been like the spokesperson in many respects publicly for Bitcoin. Now, Michael Saylor is another fellow billionaire with Michael Dell, tech billionaire who owns MicroStrategy. Now, Michael Saylor here has made one of his typical comments: Bitcoin is digital scarcity, and Michael Dell has retweeted that, presumably in agreement with Michael Saylor. And then shortly after, he followed up with a poll on what do you think will be the next big breakthrough in tech? Please vote and share your thoughts. Is that quantum computing, AI, blockchain, or space tech? And as you can see, the blockchain crypto community certainly came out and won that poll. And I guess just on that, we certainly believe in the crypto space that blockchain is going to be the guardrails as such of AI, and maybe what AI runs on, and certainly is the technology can prevent AI from becoming like a runaway Skynet Terminator kind of beast. So certainly it's good to see that's on Michael Dell's radar. Now the speculation, I suppose, that's going to come from this is Michael Dell going to do a MicroStrategy kind of investment strategy with Bitcoin, like Michael Saylor is doing with his MicroStrategy company? I don't know the answer to that, but it's certainly going to be interesting to see. Now, Michael Dell is, I believe, somewhere between the 10th and the 14th richest person on the planet, and so he's certainly got a good amount of wealth behind him to make some big moves. His company, Dell Technologies, has been doing very well recently. Now, Dell Technologies sells laptops, obviously, which is what it's probably best known for. But on top of that, it sells servers, data center storage, networking for the data center, and a lot of the software that sits within the data center too. So they've benefited a lot from the AI boom recently. The share price has gone through the roof really over the last year. I think 4 or 5 times up. And the reason for that is because the NVIDIA GPUs and even Intel and AMD GPUs, but NVIDIA especially, they are manufactured and can be embedded and are often most of the time embedded within the Dell servers. So Dell kind of resells a lot of the NVIDIA GPUs there. So it's got a lot of potential and being classed as an AI company in many respects due to that. So anyway, keep your eye on this. This is very interesting. I certainly will be watching what Michael Dell does and if he involves his company or if he's just going to be a private investor. So first up, this post from Intersect on the 21st of June 2024. The Interim Constitution is now available. Together with technical guardrails, the Interim Constitution will be included in the Chang upgrade. Drafting the final constitution will continue with global workshops and the Constitutional Convention later in December. Read more and dive into the details here. So, this is great news. The Interim Constitution is live and is intended to see us through all the way through the Chang hard fork, where it will be implemented, and through to December this year, 2024, at the Constitutional Convention in Buenos Aires in Argentina, where the final constitution will be ratified, presumably after being amended in the interim through these global workshops, and then ratified on chain, and then we will have our go forward constitution. So let's click through into the link, and up here at the top, let's start here. So we get firstly to this article introducing the interim constitution. So this really says a lot of what that tweet said. We're pleased to share that the interim constitution is now live. The constitution provides the basic rules needed to implement SIP 1694. It is temporary and will be replaced by a final constitution. Aid holders will ratify that late in 2024. The final version may be quite different depending on if there are amendments to that constitution. Now, there were the tweet did mention there would be global workshops where the community would work on essentially iterating on that constitution. So let me just scroll down a little bit here to this little timeline graph diagram thing. What you can see here is through Q1 and Q2, all this stuff that we know has happened or is happening. So constitution is now available. It's about to be included in the Chang hard fork. The DREP Pioneer program has gone live, I believe, already. Or I believe it has fairly recently. Through June and October, there will essentially be, these are the community workshop series that will start, community consultation, delegates selected by workshop participants, and that's great. So that's going to be a dialogue about the constitution that we'll take a little glance through it in a second to iterate on. The interesting part here is in November, December time, the constitution draft will be updated based on the community feedback. I guess that coincides in that first week of December with the Buenos Aires convention, and that presumably will be agreed and ratified there. And then come January, it looks like the on-chain constitution will be, having been amended, will be submitted. So that's all very exciting. So let's take a look next at the constitution, the draft constitution itself. So here it is, the interim Cardano constitution. It's a long document, a very long document, and you can see I'm just going to scroll down here and just show you a bit of the scale. You can see the little I don't know what you call this little ticker thing at the side that's showing still how long I've got to scroll. And you can see here on the summary sections as well, there's a whole lot of detail here. Now, I think this is good. I'm going to take my time going through this, but and understanding this better. I just wanted to show you where you could find this. I mean, just follow the links from the Twitter page, from the Intersect Twitter page, and you'll get here and you can take a look. So moving on back to the Intersect X page, we're going to talk a little bit now about the Interim Cardano Constitutional Committee. So there was an election that ended recently to elect the remaining 3 members of the Committee of 7 to sit on that interim committee. So as I said before on a previous video, there are 7 members, 4 of which are already defined. So there are 3 of those 4 are the founding entities, Emergo, IOG, and the Cardano Foundation, the 4th being the Intersect Committee. Now, the remaining 3 are open to the community to vote on. And I believe there are about 40 candidates who put themselves forward. and that election has been ongoing and finished on a couple of days ago on the 23rd of June. As you can see here, Intersect have posted and pinned to their timeline. Voting has now ended. A big thank you to all those who participated and voted, but a bigger shout out to all the candidates who put themselves forward to sit on the ICC, or the Interim Constitutional Committee. Results are expected on the 26th, that's today, and will be audited by Sunday Swap, Xerberus, and Andrew Westberg there. So, as of a few hours ago now, there seems to have been a delay to the ICC results. Auditing and verification of the results is continuing, and given the importance to the integrity of the vote, there will be a short delay with announcing the results. We are aiming to confirm the final members of the ICC tomorrow. Thank you for your patience. So, looks like we'll find out soon. Watch this space. So, onto the Altcoin Daily interview with Charles Hoskinson. This is an interesting interview. There's some really good snippets from here. It's about an hour and a half long. I'm not going to go through everything, but Charles. They kick off with Charles, Aaron, and Austin. In fact, what I should say here, the Altcoin Daily guys, they've been really strong proponents of Cardano for a while, and it's good to see them getting a chance to interview Charles here. So they're not really hostile in the slightest to Cardano. I know they hold Cardano themselves. So they're actively sort of cheering on the Cardano ecosystem, which is great. Anyway, so they kick off with what problems does crypto solve? And there's a few interesting things from Charles here. I mean, he talks to the fact that this is exponential technology, how this infrastructure, or this technology, can be the base infrastructure of the world. It's exponential in the sense that it doesn't take a lot of people to build this to make it grow massively and really have a huge impact, exponential impact on the world. Charles, loves throwing around this phrase, but he brings it up again. This really facilitates the move that governments will ultimately be forced on, ultimately to move from a philosophy of don't be evil to can't be evil, and the can't be evil really being the implementation of blockchain not allowing governance systems to be evil. He talks a little bit about trust being lost in institutions, and ultimately how blockchain really is all about sort of replacing the old system that's become inefficient and corrupt. So some good snippets there. Interesting to listen to. I'm going to move on to the really interesting part here. So what happens after the Chang hard fork? So this piece, there's something really interesting here that Charles talks about. I mean, obviously he says, on-chain governance is hard, and Cardano is one of the very few ecosystems that are trying to do this. And a lot of work was put into 1694 and workshops all around the world to try and get to a governance system that will work and be functional. Because ultimately, if this doesn't work, then Cardano is not going to work going forward. It's going to be in a really bad place if we don't get this governance right. So he talks to something that I hadn't heard before, and he calls it the governance trilemma. And the point he was trying to make is, through the workshop process and developing SIP 1694, the community around the world were trying to really achieve three goals with this governance system. And one was create an effective government, two, create an efficient government, and three, create a high integrity government. And his point really on this is that, and why he calls it the governance trilemma, is because it's very hard, if not impossible, for current governments to really have to achieve all three. And the two examples he uses here, interesting, there's China and Switzerland. So China has been a very effective government and a very efficient government, but not necessarily a high integrity government. And then Switzerland, on the other hand, has been a very high integrity government and an effective government in terms of the policies they're trying to get through, but not particularly efficient. It can take a long time to get stuff done, and progress is slow, although high integrity and good policies. Going back to China, the rate at which they've grown and achieved stuff over the last 2 decades has been phenomenal. But at what expense? So that was very interesting, and really following on more into the governance topic. What it enables for Cardano, should it work, is the opening up of the treasury and ultimately that government to vote and decide via the community on what to spend that on and how to grow and develop the ecosystem. And one thing Charles calls out here is an annual budget for marketing, or I mean, there's just one example of many that this money could be spent on. So there's a lot of exciting possibilities, a lot of new, I guess, businesses and industries and work is going to be done and be available to be done, leveraging the opening up of the treasury and governance actions to release that. So it's all very exciting. You can see a lot of sort of ramped up growth coming following Chang, and really, he makes a point that this is the beginning of essentially a digital nation state, and as I've called this video, the ADA the ADA network state. It really is the beginning of a digital nation as such. So very interesting. Now I'm going to find the next part in here. We've got quite a humorous ranking that Charles pulled together with Altcoin Daily on, the best news outlets for crypto ranked. So I won't go through all of these, but if you're familiar with any of these, you'll see Crypto Banter, Bankless, and the mainstream media getting the worst ratings. I mean, they've been particularly hostile to Bankless and Cardano. Bankless and Crypto Banter in particular being particularly hostile to Cardano. And really, Charles's point here is that they've been unwilling to change their perspective or really reflect introspectively on whether their position is right or whether it's just they've made their decision and they're just going to report on it regardless that Cardano is evil and so on. So that tends to be the reason why the ratings are pretty bad there. I think in contrast, the further up you go on this scale, you get the much more inquisitive interviewers, the ones who sort of sit and let the interviewee talk and ask the probing questions. So Lex and Joe Rogan, for example, very good examples of that. And almost like the sort of the skill of an interviewer is to really allow the audience to make a decision ultimately on what they're seeing without ask the probing questions, but not really get into too much of a conflict or with the interviewee. So that's really why Lex and Joe Rogan are up there, and I think it was interesting. And Charles obviously is very sort of a bit of a pet topic for him about the media and the incentives that the media have, and the best ways to create a sort of new iteration of the media. There's obviously a problem that Charles has talked to a lot about how media and journalism is incentivized, and we have a bit of a problem right now where it's the monetary incentives are aligned with how many clicks you can get and not necessarily aligned with the truth. So that I know that's heavy on Charles's mind in terms of, and he's talked about it a lot in his in various interviews and on his YouTube channel a lot. So it's interesting seeing how he ranked these. Not too many surprises in this, and obviously Altcoin Daily getting the the highest ranking as well. Nothing to do with the fact that they're actually interviewing him. Finally, I'm going to go on to the last section here. So the question sort of, will Cardano flip Bitcoin? And, I think Charles makes some really interesting points here. I mean, ultimately the answer is yes, it will do. He wholeheartedly believes it will by the end of, by a certain date. And it comes down to really a lot of the stuff we've talked about already. If governance is pulled off, then it's a growth engine. And it's self-perpetuating. If you can create a government, an on-chain government that works, you become a nation state. Now, Bitcoin tends to flounder in this respect. It doesn't have an on-chain governance system. It's not going to have one. It's not any changes that are being made and upgrades in the Bitcoin network take a long time to do. Now, Bitcoin has been powerful. Bitcoin's been very successful because it's simple. It had the first mover. It's got the network effects at the moment, but it's simple. People understand it. It's not complicated. There aren't smart contracts. There aren't a lot of things to understand as you sort of dive deep into that ecosystem. And that's been a large part of why it is the biggest crypto. Charles really says that this is great. This is true. It's not going to last when you've got enough things going for a system like Cardano. Eventually it catches up. Now, really, it's governance and decentralization. And if you can see ecosystems around, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Solana, and you see their centralization increasing and their inability to implement on-chain governance, and Cardano is doing the opposite and being measured by entities like the Edinburgh Decentralization Index. These kind of things eventually snowball. And ultimately, you don't know exactly when, but there's been technologies through history and startups that have come in and, completely flipped the big player, the incumbent player in the market there. Like we're seeing it now with OpenAI. And even other startups, AI startups. I mean, Google. Charles talks to Google being the big player there, and was so confident. Eric Schmidt was confident at CEO that Google would be the first to implement a functioning LLM. And and what we've seen now is actually it's really struggling to compete in that market, and it could ultimately threaten the future of Google over in the very short term. So, I think that's really what Charles is getting at here. So a fun conversation, really with the finishing point, that poor governance will kill a project, and there isn't any getting away from that. So Chang really is one of the most fundamental and exciting upgrades for Cardano. And should it work, Charles certainly believes that it's going to catapult Cardano to eventually flip Bitcoin and become the most valuable crypto out there. So finally, onto the attempted DDoS attack on Cardano, or the distributed denial of service attack. So first up, what is a DDoS attack? Well, it's essentially where an attacker tries to spam a network to slow it down, to sometimes crash it, and ultimately just stop it being usable by flooding the system with transactions or information that make it unusable for other users. Now, you've seen this happen, on other blockchains, Solana most notably, where an increased number of transactions, or when there's specifically an attack, force that blockchain sometimes to cut out or to stall. And that was attempted here on Cardano just yesterday, and it didn't really go to plan for the attacker. So I'm going to go through a couple of tweets here just to get an overview for what happened. I'm not going to go too technical, but just talk at high level. So this one was pretty simple to understand here. So Wendy O posted what happened with Cardano. A Cardano Twitter user here, Sir Corin, said this. So the attacker tried spamming expensive scripts to congest the network. This cost the attacker roughly $250 per hour for 12 hours. However, to make it that cheap, the attacker cut corners by removing a credential check. Another Twitter user, Phil UPLC, I think he's CEO of Anastasia Labs, realized he could claim the attacker's collateral because of it. The attack stopped as when Phil tweeted, claiming the attacker's collateral. The attack was unsuccessful. There was some mild degradation at worst. It was expensive for the attacker, and they suffered the most. So let me show you the tweet from Phil. So Phil noticed this and found a solution to actually reverse and actually remove funds from the attacker. So here, hey, if anyone wants to claim 400 ADA from the attacker, just deregister the state credentials they are using. You get 2 ADA per state credential you deregister, and the attacker is using 194 always succeeds credentials. Also, this would immediately stop their DDoS on the network. It would cost another 400 ADA, presumably 2 ADA times 194, to start again, which could then immediately be stolen from them. Just to clarify, the network is behaving as intended, liveness is unaffected, and everything, block size limit, transaction limits, block times, are all set so conservatively that any attack on liveness is a total waste of funds. So I'll stop there. I think the point is, look, the network was acting as it should do. There were congested blocks or full blocks based on this transaction. I think what the attacker was trying to do is fill these blocks up so much so that it would degrade the service that other users would feel. And they found a way to do this very cheaply. Now, there's a good post from the Ada Ape on this, who used an analogy of a library. Now, I won't read all of this, but ultimately what he's sort of saying is the attacker tried and failed, highlighting how secure and well-designed the network is. But imagine Cardano as a massive library where users come to read books, check out books, and ultimately that's processing the transactions. So in this scenario, the attacker turned up at the library and dumped a huge pile of really heavy books. They're big, they're cumbersome. It means that the librarians have to do a lot of work to sort through these and carry them and resort them. Now, the loophole, I suppose, in Cardano was that there was no additional fee for the size of the book. So the attacker came in with really large scripts or really large books that didn't cost anything or too much extra than a normal transaction. So the solution here is that the library has a way to remove junk books from the system. Each book has a specific identifier or a state credential. And if any helpful user in the library wants to remove one of these junk books, they can. And they get a reward of the 2 ADA per credential removed. And this is what Phil was talking about with 194 scripts with each of their 2 ADA credential that were sort of filling up these blocks. Ultimately, look, I won't go any further. The attack failed, and it ended up being very well. If it had continued, it would have become increasingly expensive for the attacker with no reward and no impact as users could go and just remove the junk book. So it is kind of funny. It was really interesting to watch. It's the first time this has actually happened on Cardano, a sort of coordinated DDoS attack, and there should be a lot of confidence that's gained from this, that the network held up, and all the rigor and the research that has gone into the blockchain, the Cardano blockchain, to make it resilient to this kind of attack. So it was a sort of a good day, I think, for Cardano, and rather humorously, just to rub salt in the wound of the attacker, and Maker, during the DDoS attack, launched a memorial NFT to demonstrate that they could still do this while the attack was going on. So I think they minted up to 1,000 of these, and they were minted during the attack. So even further showcasing the resiliency of Cardano. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this first installment of the latest news on Cardano, the ADA Network State Series. I look forward to seeing you again soon.